Hey guys, it's Sam, and this tutorial is a little different than the tutorials that I normally do, and that's because this is less a tutorial on how to draw hands, but more how to get good at drawing hands, as the title would suggest. This tutorial was actually probably the most requested tutorial that I've had so far, and I'm pretty sure I know the reason why. So I've seen my fair share of how to draw hands tutorials, and I've noticed a very common trend, and that's there are a lot of how to draw hands tutorials, and there are a lot of people requesting even more. It kind of makes you wonder, just what is it about hands that make us freak out so much as artists? Well, look at them. You look at them all the time. Look at them right now. You have hands right in front of you. What do you do when you want to go get a drink of water? You reach out with your hand to grab the cup. What are you going to look at? You're probably going to see your hand in your peripheral vision if not looking directly at your hand. Or if you reach to open a car door, your hands are always there, they're always in front of you. There's something that you see very, very often. This isn't like a dog or a car or any other animal or any other thing that you know what they look like. You could probably do a little sketch right now and it wouldn't look too bad. But if you were to draw a hand right now, you'd probably say to yourself, oh, this looks terrible, but why? Because we see them so often, we're so used to what they look like to the exact point. That's why when you look at a drawing of a portrait or a drawing of hands, you tend to notice the things that stick out as wrong a lot easier than if you were to look at, say, a landscape of a mountain or something, or just things that we don't see nearly as often as we see our own hands or faces and stuff like that. So the point of this little rant is, it's understandable why artists struggle with it, and not as much as with everything else, because it's something we see often, it's easy to find mistakes, and how do we fix it? By, requesting hand tutorials and watching hand tutorials and reading up on how to draw hands, right? Not exactly. If you want to get good at drawing hands, there isn't exactly a secret. I mean, there isn't really a secret at all, and it's just draw hands. That's literally what this video is about, is just drawing hands. I've seen so many requests and so many people just talking about hand tutorials, and it's like, how many of you guys have actually tried out any of the hand tutorials that you've seen? And sure, some of you might say, well, I've tried it once. Once is the key word there. Try it a dozen times. Try it 100 times. Try it 1,000 times. You're not going to get good at drawing hands by drawing one hand from a tutorial that you've looked at. You gotta draw it a crap load of times. That's how you get good at something, is you practice. Reiteration, you do it over and over and over again. For every hand tutorial you see, you've got to try it several different times. You've got to play around with it. I mean, in this video here alone, I've drawn 100 hands exactly. I've used several different tools, several different pens. I use digital later on. I've used, just try out different mediums, try out different styles, try doing things really funky and weird, try making things, realistic, try making things cartoony. It's all about experimenting and practicing, and it's mostly about doing it a lot. And in order to do it a lot, you can't do full-blown drawings, because how many full-blown, hyper-detailed artworks can you do versus a very simple, basic, just run-of-the-mill sketch? I mean, you could probably do several dozens of sketches in the same amount of time that it would take you to do a finished drawing, right? So clearly, if you can do more sketches in the same amount of time, then you should take advantage of that, because not only will you gain speed, but you'll also gain the accuracy, understanding of the anatomy, and you'll get things to be just general improvement. I mean, if you're looking at the sketches that I'm doing in this video right now, a lot of them aren't that great. I mean, depending on your skill level, you might be like, whoa, that's awesome, but to me, a lot of these aren't that great, and they're not very accurate. Some of them are kind of just wonky, and it's like, that's whatever, the point is just to draw hands, and you don't have to draw them exactly like how I'm drawing them. I recommend you play around with whatever tutorials that you look at and that you watch and follow. However, I cannot stress strongly enough that you need to absolutely look at references. You can't just, draw a hand because you won't know what you're doing wrong. Just like you can't just draw, I don't know, a house, and you're like, oh, this looks like a house, but then you look at pictures of a house and you're like, oh, wait, maybe it's not a house. References, real life references that can include photos, but obviously real life is more ideal, which means like physically in front of you. Those are the most accurate sources that you can get. If you want to know how to draw a dog, look at a dog. You might think you know what a dog looks like, but you might not actually know what a dog looks like, and that's very important. I used to be really uncomfortable drawing hands. I used to actively avoid it. You could probably look at some of my old sketchbook videos that I've posted and see that I do my best to either make them just kind of square or hide them behind the back or put them in pockets and just suddenly they're missing hands. But I mean, I was missing out on drawing hands. For every hand that I didn't draw, that was one hand that I never got to practice. And that's one hand short of being even better at hands. And you might think, well, one hand, no, that's not that much, but it adds up. I mean, I've probably missed out on thousands of hands because I try to avoid drawing them. So no excuses. How about every single time you draw a person, a figure, a drawing of where the hand would be in the picture somehow, draw the hand. Even if it's not going to be very good, draw the hand. If you need references, look at references. Don't make the excuse to try and hide it in pockets just to hide it in pockets just to avoid it. Like if you're drawing a picture and the pose you want is to have somebody, you know, with hands in the pockets, yeah, sure. But like if you're doing it for the only sole reason of not drawing the hands, that's just you missing out on drawing hands. I remember I was trying to make a short, stupid little comic when I was a kid, and one of the characters, I purposely made her have super long sleeves, and that was just, I made it part of her character that she liked wearing insanely long sleeve stuff just so I didn't have to draw the hands. I made it a part of her character. That's how much I didn't want to draw hands. You can even have some fun with it and design pictures that purposely have hands being really cool, like doing magic or punching someone or I don't know, but make it fun. I know that it matters a lot because it does matter to me that the hands looking nice are important, but in terms of sketching, that's not important. You need to not stress about it. Pretend, I mean, if it like affects you, then hide these pictures. Like, don't show anybody. Tell yourself it's just going to be me seeing them. So there's nothing to worry about. There's no potential negative outside judgment of drawing badly. Not that it matters all that much if you draw badly, because, I mean, we're all learning here. That's why I'm showing you guys the good hands and the bad hands, because not every hand you draw is going to be a masterpiece, and that's just fine, because that's still one more hand further down the line than you were before. It was kind of a slow process to get myself to start drawing hands, and it helped a lot to look at my own hands or, you know, grab my friends and tell them to hold a pose for a while, or you can even take a picture of their hands. Internet, great place to find references for hands if you want to, you know, do more than just your hands or your friend's hands or something. Make sure you got, you know, the right licensings for them, so royalty-free photos. DeviantArt's got a lot of stock photos, Pixabay, public domain, you know, have at it. It wasn't until I really started forcing myself to draw hands and draw them often that I started to notice a difference. And you don't notice it right away. You notice it for me at least, it was kind of just sudden. I drew a picture and I was like, whoa, I didn't even use a reference to draw this hand, and this hand isn't even that bad. Like, I feel like this hand is better than other hands I've done without a reference before. And that's how it happened to me, was just out of the blue kind of thing. So, you know, the more you practice, the more it's going to change how you improve. So just to give you guys a little bit of insight into how I have been practicing drawing hands and drawing, you know, in general, I've been using pens. I've been taking a liking to pens. If you're going to practice drawing hands, I recommend pen just because it's permanent and you cannot erase it. And I think that's very important because it forces you to not care about how bad things turn out. And it forces you to stop worrying about erasing to fix things. and you have to just draw the picture and then move on. There's nothing else you can do. So if you have pens, I highly recommend that you use pens to draw and practice hands, or really anything that you're struggling with. Another thing I tend to do is to just lightly draw a circle, depending on what tool I'm using. Like if I'm using an ink brush pen, it's kind of difficult to get so many sketchy lines before you do the more final ones. And so I do a little circle just to kind of get an idea of where the palm / giant main area of the hand, I don't know what it's called, GG Sam, and then kind of make them like mittens, like not worry so much about the fingers. I like to start with the thumb. I feel like that helps to give me a base of where things are going, and then tend to do a quick little mitten-y outline of where the fingers go, and if I want to include the fingers in that sketch, then I'll go ahead and just quick sketch them all in. For these 100 hands, I think the total time it took me to draw them all was about like just over an hour, so it really isn't that long of a time just to sit down and really give yourself the time to just sketch. And if it helps, there's websites like Quick Poses where it can time you for drawing hands, so you can do figures and the gestures of hands and not just, you know, the human body. That's another way to help you to focus less on the details and more just about getting things done as, you know, quickly as possible, and throw accuracy out the window. You don't need to get every single line exact. These are sketches. This is just trying to understand the anatomy, how the shapes are, and all of that stuff. You can always do more refined drawings of hands later. I'm assuming you're probably going to have more finished, polished drawings in the future, which may have hands, and at that point, yeah, sure, you know, do a little bit more effort into a hand. But until then, I recommend just doing quick nothings like these that I've been doing in the video. And speaking of quick nothings that I've been doing in the video, I would like to propose a challenge to every single person that has watched this video, and I want you guys to do it, and that is draw 100 hands. And by draw, I mean sketch, and by sketch, I mean follow any tutorial you want, do any sort of style you want. I don't care how you do it. Draw 100 of them. I want them to be sketches. I want them to be fast. I don't want you to spend hours and hours and hours working on one hand. No, I want you to spend a few seconds, a few minutes at most on one hand and then move on to the next one. I want you to try painting or pencil sketching or using a pen or finger painting. I don't care. I want you to practice drawing 100 hand sketches. And you might say that 100 sounds like a lot, but it's really not. You can even put down a timer and say, okay, for 30 minutes, I'm just going to do nothing but sketch hands. And once the 30 minutes is up, you know, go on with the rest of your day, and then the next day do another 30 minutes and just keep going. Once you're done with all of those sketches of your hands, you can compile them all together, or you can post them one by one, or you can keep them to yourself. But if you do decide to post them, feel free to comment with a link to all of them down below, because I would really like to see all y'all's hands, and I really want you to take a look at hands that you've drawn before you started this 100 hand challenge to hands you've drawn after. And even if you don't see like a huge significant difference, know that you're 100 hands further than you were before, and you have a better understanding of things that you did before. And even if it's not in the forefront of your mind, even if it's not immediately obvious, it's there and it's real, and it makes a huge difference. Hopefully this video was able to help inspire you guys to try hands. They're not as scary as they seem. I know it's kind of intimidating, they got a lot of stuff to them, but really, the more you draw, the more you practice, the more you just, you know, put niceness and high quality out the window, the less you care about how good it looks, the better you'll actually become at drawing hands. For supporters over on my Patreon page, you guys are going to get 50 extra hand sketches in the June time-lapse video, so keep an eye out for that. As for everybody else, including my patrons, thanks so much for watching. Don't give up. Fight the power. You can do it. Draw hands. I believe in you. Do it right now. Turn off all the YouTubes and just draw.